There was a long bloody war in Europe. The king of the burnt offering, SagaRA, the prince, was forced to wage constant wars with sinners who from time to time attacked the rat city from all sides. Realizing that they could not defeat the fire prince one by one, they gathered together and attacked, and the Danavian rulers provided sinners with weapons and armor, even food, and everything else that was necessary. In addition, the Danavas gave sinners 8 rosaries, the repetition of which spreads torment, 16 yantras of horror, 3,000 tanks and 500 long-range guns beating gravitational waves. But having defeated them, SagaRA Prince did not kill representatives of these Deccan tribes and peoples of Europe, among whom the Talazani, servants of Talazan Prince, Benari, Saki, Gaihai and barbarians were the most numerous. Having pardoned the sinners, he dressed some of them in tattered rags, leaves or furs and ordered them to curl their braids, forced others to shave their heads, but allowed them to let go of their moustaches, and not cut them, ordered the third to wear their hair loose and never wash them, left the fourth half-shaved, forbade the fifth to wear waist-length clothes, but walk naked with their feet, the sixth ordered to walk clothes from above exposing the torso, the seventh forced to wear skirts, and the eighth to be content with wrapping in a long cloth. The king of the burnt offering, SagaRA, the prince, ordered sinners to swear on the blood of their families, and such a blood oath obliged them to observe the terms of the oath, inviolably. Together with Ayuravad Raman SagaRA, Rataslav created a plan to create fortress cities, both from old destroyed cities, and those created from the beginning. This is how cities of cult, scientific, educational and defensive purpose arose, which were located on the southern banks of the Rhine and the Danube. Here are their names: Slavograd, Solnsgrad, Voinovgrad, Spevograd, Trudograd, Trograd, Charity, Ukingrad, Blagograd, Pravdograd, Kugrad, Atkazgrad, Zvitязgrad, Svershingrad, Radagast, Novograd. Slavograd was located near the then Danube Delta, and Novograd was located near the then Rhine Delta. The cities had an almost equal distance from each other, but not ideally equal, but consistent with the landscape. The rulers of the defeated principalities, leaving their former cities as capitals, were obliged to transfer the main trades and production to these cities. SagaRA also obliged them to contribute with natural, human and other available resources to the reconstruction or construction of these cities. Upon learning about this, the Black Sea Danavas became concerned and decided to poison the Danube. For this they filled its sources with poisons and mutated snakes that sought to kill all living things. SagaR's plan was on the verge of collapse, but the prince said, "That's how it should be. Cities need to be built." The prince himself entered into meditation, called upon the god Aya, and ordered him to purify the sources of the river, and fill the river itself with divine life-giving forces. Aya fulfilled this, and the SLAVS who built the cities rejoiced, as they received an abundance of strength and health from drinking the waters of the Danube. By SagaR's order, the Danube River, which was then called Grancha Rek, was renamed Aya Rek, the river of the god Aya, full of his divine power. The king of burnt offerings, Fire, Prince of Fire, Falcon's son from the dynasty of solar falcons, thought about the prolongation of the family, and decided to perform austerity in order to conceive 18 daughters. Upon learning about this, the prince of the Danavas was afraid, because he feared that by marrying 18 daughters with 18 princes, SagaRA would gather all the peoples of the earth under his power, and destroy the Danavas. Prince Danavov poisoned SagaR Rataslav and SagaR Rataslav. The king of the burnt offering completed his austerities in anger, and SagaR suffered a miscarriage. She became the mother of the dead, and after that, she couldn't get pregnant anymore. The king of the burnt offering called Ayurvedraman, and asked him to clone his daughters from dead fetuses. Ayurvedraman agreed and soon did it, but the genome of the princesses was very badly damaged by the poison, and Ayurvedraman, realizing this, created 60,000 reservoirs in which he placed the cloned embryos. Vedraman thought that almost all of them would certainly they will die, and I would be glad if at least one princess survived. But everyone survived. However, poison, imperfect gene reconstruction technology and other factors led to the fact that the sex of the embryos became male. Consequently, the king of the burnt offering received 60,000 sons instead of 18 daughters. So the fear of the Danavian prince gave rise to a myriad army, initially set against him. Years later, Vedraman raised them, trained them and brought them to the king of burnt offerings. Smolger and SLAVS the blacksmith created perfect weapons and armor for the grown demigods. The first of them was Magavir with his faithful companion Magagar. Other famous ones were Bitter, Bigger, Mare, Megar, Ukai, Ukare, Vernig, Bakaz, Utter, Olinar, Arxi, Arvaxikai, Vesteri, Bartayar, Mber, Vestever, Bradar, Vrar, Siar, Saufar, Sen, Sevd, Berishan, Sukardar, as well as Prince Janai, who was a hermit. He studied himself, meditated himself, only under the supervision of Vedraman, and when SagaRA conceived Garak, king of Peas, Garak, Asamenge, and Garakit and Makosh, after their birth he sent them to study with Vedraman. Janai Garislav took them under his care and patronage. Even during his studies, Garich met Sangal, the son of a guard, whom he took as his first assistant, and who later accompanied him. He also called Kasich, Gilt, Vedant and Gridvik at various times, who later became military commanders and faithful assistants of the holy prince Gara, and his faithful assistant Sangal. He forged his own weapons and sewed his own clothes, forged his own armor, decorated them with runes himself. Vedraman, SagaRA, SagaRate, Makosha, Smolager and SLAVS, seeing the renounced greatness of Jankha Garislav, blessed him in every possible way, endowing his armor and weapons with various divine powers. The ancient Danavas of Kabadak and Kajarak fought with Sagar's grandfathers. Once Barakai Daraslav besieged underwater cities twice, and Askaboy Dadhuslav destroyed 17 countless demonic armies that rose against him from the seabed. Having so crushingly defeated the Danav offensive, he decided not to defend himself anymore, but to attack them himself. When Askaboy Dadhuslav was going to descend to the seabed to besiege underwater cities, the Danavas staged hundreds of nuclear explosions along the coast, which threw tons of rock into the waters and turned clean waters into a kind of swamp. But they continued to constantly attack the SLAVS from their underwater possessions, kidnap and enslave the innocent. The sea turned into a swamp stank, and various dangerous mutants created by Danavian techno-magicians periodically floated out of it. So once again, the Danavas who lived in the southern lake, Black Sea, besieged the tavern city on the Dniester, and threatened to advance to the most sacred Iskrastan. SagaRA led the army of his sons, and went to protect his subjects. The Danavas were quickly expelled from the Danaster and fled to their possessions. But SagaRA and his sons pursued them and, descending to the seabed, defeated their rulers, captured the capital and expelled the Danavas from this lake, who were forced to flee unarmed to Dana city. SagaRA took part of the buildings, technologies and riches for the reconstruction of the capital city, and in the underwater city taken from the Danavs, he left a garrison of loyal soldiers, and half of the order of Iskrastanian monks of Minulakups, archaeologists, named after the holy prince Opomunisla, to study Danav technologies and transport them to Ratoya. The city of Kabata was renamed Ratasvastan. Representatives of the lower castes were also invited to it to rebuild it into an underwater bunker and then conservation. The Iskrastanian monks of the order named after the holy prince Pramisa were invited to build temples, and the monks of the order named after the holy prince Atamisa were invited to design and redesign the defensive structures of the city. For more than 10 years, the all-beautiful SagaRA ruled from the bottom of the sea. By his orders, the waters of the lake were cleaned again so that the SLAVS living around could swim on them, and, if necessary, fish. All those traps that the Danavas had previously set were destroyed. Smaller underwater settlements of Danavas have been found. When the Danav troops broke up, their civilian population, disarmed, was sent to Danagrad, part of the civilian population of the Danavs of the northeastern part of the Black Sea, and the Sea of Azov, then it was the delta of the Ura River, was asked to stay among the Slavs, and faithfully help the Slavs to farm and later for the most part, fought for the Slavs mixing and synchronizing with them. One large city in the depths of the sea continued to resist the God of gods, but they also realized the superiority of the Slavic troops, and therefore, to protect the city, they did not repeat Kabadok's mistakes, but simply decided to go into the underground depths, burrowing into the lithosphere and cutting off all communication routes with the lake and the surface. Having left their city for the depths, the Danavas took many technologies and riches with them, others blew up and mined most of what was left. SagaRA ordered to defuse the Danava traps, dismantle the ruins of Kajarik and use them to strengthen the most sacred Iskrastan, and transported some factories to Rat City, Vidian City, Svityaz City and Trud City. When the sacred and unharmed SagaRA in shining armor, at the head of 60,000 troops of his majestic sons, rose from the bottom of the sea, the people, his victorious emperor of fire, greeted him, saying, "Great thanks to you for clearing the sea of demons for us. These demons robbed and killed us. You have now saved us from the demons. You have given us a clean sea, filled with your sacred grace." The Slavs created hundreds of songs, litanies and glorifications dedicated to the glorious victory of SagaR over underwater demons. When the fetid swamp turned back into a clean lake, the Slavs praised SagaR as the creator of this sea. Some perceived him as the Almighty, others as an underwater king, others believed that he and his glorious sons came and dug up this sea, which had previously been only a swamp. The reconstructed Rat City shone like the kingdom of heaven, like Sparga sacred, with all the colors and colors. In the throne room of the king of burnt offering, stood the throne of the magnificent, behind which was a huge statue of the fiery falcon. Slightly to the rear on either side of SagaR, were the thrones of his wives Sagarat, Makoshi. In front of him, below the level of his throne, there were seats for Ere Vedraman, Vishwe Vedraman, Jana Garislav and the younger Gara.